Viktor Frankl said, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms. To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's way." This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson. Stay tuned for the next hour as Sue explores the human psyche, what makes us tick, and how to live better, more fulfilled and more meaningful lives. Only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson on the Finding Human program on 101.9 High FM. My guest today is S'bo Vilakazi. He's been on my program a few times. He was actually on my program probably almost exactly a year ago. And our topic today is Be the Light. I'm going to introduce him in a minute, but I just want to tell you what Desmond Tutu said. He said, "Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all of the darkness." And I think that's such a beautiful quote. And that's exactly what S'bo is able to do. Sawubona, S'bo, how are you today?
Sawubona, Susan. Ngiyaphila. I am well, thank you very much. How are you, Sue?
Yebo siyabona. Is that right? Almost, hey?
Well, sort of. You well on your way there. Yebo is correct for yes, and
Yes.
then siyabo. I think you might have wanted to say siyabonga, which is we thank you, and
Oh, that's
siyabona means we see. Or we see.
Okay, we see you. And then to our listeners, do we say Sanibonani?
That's right.
Okay.
That's exactly
So,
right.
S'bo is a man of many, many talents, and he's been on our program before, and he's got a very impressive portfolio. I also follow him on LinkedIn, and I'm always very impressed by what he's put on. He runs the Valley Trust, the non-profit organization in KwaZulu-Natal, and he's part of the Gordon Institute. His mom said that when he was little and living in Mbabane in Swaziland, that he would always run to the gate whenever he saw anyone walk past the house carrying what looked like a load. And you know what, S'bo, this passion of yours has followed you throughout your life. And I see you call yourself a peace farmer, P-E-A-C-E, peace farmer. And by nature, you say, well, I would say in Hebrew, we would say you were a shalom farmer. So it definitely is a peace farmer. Now, you have been very, very busy. So, your CV goes from profit institutions to academic, government, non-profit. You're also an active Toastmaster, and you recently completed your Distinguished Toastmaster Award, which is fantastic. When was that?
Early in the year, or around mid-year.
Oh, he's also an author of poetry and prose, a proofreader, freelance MC, and I see you also are the organizing committee on the annual Durban International Book Fair. And you host authors and launching their books. And you also explore many other opportunities that come your way, and you're invited to so many different things. So I want to start by saying to you, can we start on, I'll tell you why just now, but can we start on one of the weeks, you actually facilitated as a discussion at the high school in Kloof. Will you tell me a bit about that? You've frozen for a moment.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson, and I'm back again, I hope, with S'bo Vilakazi. We keep getting cut off. I think there's a problem with connections at the moment, both here and with him. S'bo, are you there?
I am.
Okay. I was asking you if you could just tell me a bit about last week, a few weeks ago, when you ran a discussion group with grades 10, 11, and 12, who were members of the Representative Council of Learners at the Kloof High School in Durban. And I'll tell you why I'm
Thank
interested. I'll tell you why I'm interested. Because yesterday I went to the King David Ariel Victory Park School, where my grandson Daniel Koffler and his friend Tori Bravo were both awarded as mini counselors. And they were both so excited to be part of a bigger community, to be able to reach out to so many diverse cultures and schools, and they're going to do a great job. And then during the assembly, the headmistress, Miss Ben, did a wonderful program, a little video on kindness. And all the children were asked to actually participate. And I was impressed with what the children said. It was a program on values. And I was so pleased to see it. And I just hope that Daniel and Tori, who are both mini counselors, will take this forward and make a big difference in other people's lives. S'bo, we're going to get back to you in a moment and the Kloof. Thank you, Craig.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, I'm back. It's Sue Jackson, and I'm back with S'bo Vilakazi. If you'd like to send any messages, you can on SMS 34519 or Telegram on 061 895 1019. Thank you, Craig. You're going to be playing a very short YouTube on racism with Elie Wiesel, Nobel Prize winner and Holocaust survivor.
Sure, my friend, you know how many reasons we have to be desperate and despairing. The world is not learning anything. We have seen that. You and I went through certain experiences. If anyone had told us in 1945 that there are certain battles we'll have to fight again, we wouldn't have believed it. Right. Racism, anti-Semitism, starvation of children, who would have believed that? At least I was convinced then naively that at least something happened in history, that because of, let's say, Auschwitz, certain things will not happen again. I was convinced that hatred among nations and among people perished in Auschwitz. It didn't. The victims died, but the haters are still here, new ones. And so often I say to myself, really, what are we doing on this planet? We are passing the message as well as we can, communicating our fears, our hopes, and day in, day out, week after week and year after year, people kill each other.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson, and I'm back with S'bo Vilakazi. And S'bo, you've just been listening to Elie Wiesel, and he said nothing has changed as far as racism and hatred and is concerned. But you have actually experienced something different at Kloof when you were actually working with the students there. Will you tell me about it, please?
Thank you for the invitation, Sue. Yes, I had a fascinating time with the learners at Kloof High in Durban. I've been doing some work with the staff of the school, and we know there's recently been a lot of bad press about a lot of particularly Model C high schools or private schools, formerly Model C schools, and private schools in South Africa that have diversified, in other words, that have increased their proportion of Black students. And throughout the length and breadth of this country, there have been instances of racism that have made it to the news even. And so Kloof have proactively sought to counter this by putting in place a diversity intervention even before there are any matters that erupt into the public domain. And so they invited me to work with the staff there. And the very first thing that struck me as curious about Kloof was that Mr. Holding was the principal there. When he thought of staff, he didn't think of just the educators, which is what many institutions tend to do. When I went to the session, there were educators there were admin staff, the cleaners were there, the groundsmen were there, the ground staff were there. So already you can see a different perspective coming from the head of the school to the normal. And so we did this thing then with the teachers. And he tells me, this is Mr. Holding tells me that when he told his the executive council of the students representative council, they wanted an intervention as well. And so I had time then with the leadership of the Representative Council of Learners. This is a mix of Black, white, Indian, colored students that lead the students at the school. What was fascinating for me, Sue, is that going there, I kind of had in the back of my mind, as a diversity trainer, I've done a number of these kinds of interventions, and you sort of start to begin to expect or anticipate certain things. Although, of course, my training encourages me to hold my judgment, to suspend my judgment. But even though I was doing that, when I went there, I expected, oh my goodness, I wonder what race issues are going to come up now. And I was wrong. When I sat with the learners and we went through the program, and it was time for them to voice their issues, their challenges. The most important challenge that they raised was internal communication amongst themselves. The ones who are not on the executive felt that the executive does not communicate timeously and does not communicate enough. A second challenge was raising the profile of other sports in the school besides rugby. And they call this sport equality. To them, they're saying, you know what, we play more than just rugby at the school, so we want soccer, netball, and other sports recognized. And in fact, they had gone so far as to arrange a soccer tournament together with an annual tournament against the one partner school that's always a big deal when they play, and then played soccer then. And then third only in sort of importance to the RCL was racism. But even then, not in the way that I had anticipated it. They were not complaining that the school is racist, etc. What they were saying was they need assistance with being able to discern what racism is and what is not. Because they said, whilst there are some issues across the race spectrum between people of different races, some of them are just people not knowing how to talk to other people. Some of them are just lack of tact, and some of them are just people using race as a scapegoat. And that fascinated me because it came from the black learners as well. And I would have expected them to say, or let me put it like this, I would not have been surprised if they said, we face a lot of racism here from the white teachers or from the white learners, etc., etc. But what it showed me was there is an environment, or that the high school is an environment where the learners, the black learners, don't feel that racism is something that is thrown at them daily. And clearly, it speaks of the culture within the school. So I was pleasantly surprised.
Absolutely. I mean, there's such hope in that, isn't there? And I know that you said you were struck by the depth of self-awareness and the ability of students to articulate their words too, which Definitely. I think is amazing.
Yes. What happened, Sue, is subsequent to my starting to work with the staff, they then invited me to give the keynote address at their speech and prize giving morning. And there were the grade 11s and the matrics, and they were given prizes, of course, and the whole thing. And what I noticed was you could tell the spirit of family in that school. They have a new tagline that came, I believe, with the new principal. He's been principal since 2020. That says one family, one school, or one school, one family. But what I noticed was that this is entrenched in the culture of the school. You should have seen the interactions between the learners and the educators, between the learners themselves, and between even the parents who were there attending the speech and prize giving day, and the learners and the educators. I left with a feeling that that's a really positive, it's a school with a positive atmosphere, and it's a school that learners thrive. So well done to them. I really think they are just different to many, many schools that we hear about in the news.
Absolutely. I have to also say, well done to them. They can certainly teach everyone, the rest of us, to tell you the truth, how to respect one another, how to find our voices if we don't like anything that we see, to be able to speak up and meet each other on an equal basis, you know, which is just so important. Now, you also, have been doing many other things. You've been working on a value diversity with a leadership of 3 divisions within the University of KZN. Tell me a bit about that.
It was, it's been an exciting time for me, I would say, because what happened was in the midst of lockdown, in the midst of COVID, in 2020, October of 2020, I had the privilege to work with the leadership of the medical school at UKZN. They were doing a strategic review. And as part of that strategic review, they then asked me to do a piece on diversity and just diversity awareness for them as a leadership. And out of that, so we did this, it was over 2 days. Out of that, this year, I got a call from the College of Humanities, and it was the Deputy Vice Chancellor, together with the deans that make up his direct reports, his leadership team, they took some time away to just regroup, refocus, but then they also had the awareness that post-COVID, or that COVID has been a traumatic time for everyone. It left no one unscathed, pretty much. If it wasn't directly in your family, if it wasn't something you caught as an individual, then it is people we all knew. But it has changed people. And what I've appreciated about in this, about the College of Humanities, is they have appreciated the fact that the people that we are now interacting with could be very different to who we were interacting with pre-COVID.
Wow.
You know, the trauma that people have gone through could possibly have changed people in ways that are significant to them, certainly. So how do we come back as a team, firstly as this leadership team, and amongst ourselves, look at each other in the right way, work together in the right way? And then I think they have something like 15,000 students just within that college. How does then this leadership cascade all the way to the student body? A culture that values people as individuals, and one that helps people thrive in spite of, and in fact, in particular, with regard to this trauma that we've all suffered. So I did that work then with the College of Humanities, and this was the deans, the Deputy Vice Chancellor with the deans. One of the deans then wanted, this was the Dean of Teaching and Learning, then wanted that with her team of leaders, which is the Teaching and Learning Business Unit. So we did something with them, and there as well, it was about saying, how do we work better amongst ourselves in an effective way amongst ourselves, acknowledging what we've each been through and ensuring that everybody is seen. You were saying to me, Sawubona, when we started this show, I see you. Yes, ensuring that everybody is seen as for who they are, for what they bring to the party. One of the insights that struck me from the work with the university is at the end of it, when we were taking feedback, someone said, it has been such a pleasure getting to know the person behind the title.
Wow, that's fantastic. Was it also a mixed group, all different colors and cultures?
Yes. Yeah. I have to tell you, what struck me though was how young the leadership of these institutions is getting. But it was spread across the racial groups and even age-wise. Very refreshing to see that there are these pockets of people who care about the well-being of others in the country.
And who have got a different perspective. They're not stuck in the past, which I think sounds fantastic, to tell you the truth. And then you've been up in Johannesburg. Unfortunately, we couldn't meet. But tell me a bit about why you were up here. What were you doing? What course?
Okay, so apart from meeting...
You've frozen again.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Oh no, Sue Jackson on the Finding Human program. My guest today is S'bo Vilakazi. We're having a bit of problems with our connections, but please just hang in there, because what he has to say, even if you don't hear it or whatever you hear, is definitely worth it. If you'd like to SMS us, do so on 34519. You're listening to 101.9 High FM. Thank you, Craig. Just put him back, please. S'bo?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, you're here.
Thank you. Thank you, Sue. I attended a course that was being run by the Abinja Institute of South Africa. The Abinja Institute, some here, maybe some of your listeners might know it. They wrote the books, The Anatomy of Peace, and another one called Leadership and Self-Deception, amongst many other books. And the course was on outward inclusion. In other words, how do we create or develop what they call an outward mindset? In other words, a mindset that values others and sees people as people, and therefore form inclusive organization. It was a fascinating experience, because we got to learn about the importance of belonging, people feeling like they belong in a work environment. We got to learn about the importance of acknowledging unconscious biases. And what stood out for me was that in the discussions, the question was asked, is bias ever really unconscious? When we treat others badly, what are we pretending not to know? Or what are we pretending we don't know? Because the Abinja Institute posits that naturally we lean towards and we are drawn to the humanity of others. And it takes emotional work. It takes an emotional labor for us to actually dehumanize others and stop seeing the humanity of others. And naturally, we connect as humans. And so if we go against that nature, very often it's not unconscious at all. Regardless of what you've been taught, you still know it's wrong to poke someone in the eye. You still know it's wrong to do many of the things that we do to others that dehumanize, that humiliate, and that belittle them. And so how then do we educate ourselves in this?
We'll get back to that shortly. Thank you, Craig.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson. And I'm back with S'bo Vilakazi. I hope you heard that advert that I was trying to read there. We're back together again. Are you there, S'bo?
I am.
Right. So you were saying that people are aware if they are hurting someone else. And I agree, because you only have to look at people's faces, look in their eyes to see the hurt and the pain that you are causing.
Sure. And in fact, what needs to happen is that we need to be carefully taught to hate others. Because, and the reason it has to be deliberate and careful and very specific is because we are turning almost against our nature. Interestingly enough, Sue, there's a documentary that I watch, that I love to watch from time to time. I've got it recorded on my DSTV unit. It's called Why We Hate. And one of the executive producers is actually Steven Spielberg. And it's a 5-part miniseries that explores what your clip was talking about earlier in the show. The fact that as human beings, we seem so prone towards hurting each other. And you would have thought that things like the Holocaust and other disasters, other calamities would have taught us to treat each other better. Yet this hatred and this wanton destruction of life continues unabated. But so the program then explores whether this is an intrinsic human characteristic, the human stain, so to speak, that cannot be eroded, so that cannot be removed.
And what was the verdict? That everyone could change?
Very much that. Much of the hatred that we enact against each other is learned. It's learned behavior. Mm-hmm. And there may have been times in the past where it was necessary for survival. But the thing is, often we exploit it for other means as well. We'll exploit it for selfish means to benefit at the expense of another. Yeah.
You know, as you're saying that, I was thinking about something that I read, and I actually put it out here. And it's by anonymous, but it says, be the person who breaks the cycle. If you were judged, choose understanding. If you were rejected, choose acceptance. If you were shamed, choose compassion. Be the person who you needed when you were hurting, not the person who hurt you. Vow to be better than what broke you, to heal instead of becoming bitter, so you can act from your heart, not from your pain.
Yes.
And I do think that a lot of us in South Africa have remained stuck in the pain of the past and have not allowed the joy, the companionship, the interaction that we actually see to come into our lives and recognize it and celebrate it. A message came through to me. What are your hopes for South Africans' future after your inclusion now, your project?
I go with what you just read now, that as long as we have individuals, and we do, as individuals, we stay conscious of the fact that I have a role to play, and I can play a significant role in moving us forward as a nation, as a race, as a human race, in this journey of acknowledging each other. We don't have to like each other, Sue. That's the thing. We don't have to live together. We don't have to do anything than just allow other people to be. And so I believe that even in South Africa, with our history of hurt and discrimination, and there are examples like Kloof High and many others. Here's you and I now having a conversation that is typically quite different. It's difficult to have between people of different races, between a black and a white person. But here we are having this conversation. I think that the desire to live in a productive way with others, in productive, meaningful relationships with others, is greater than the desire to separate us. And so I'm hopeful. And I think that as long as all of us are willing to bear the pain of change, and it's that, someone says stereotypes, usually we resort to stereotypes because we don't want to have to care so much about others. And so in my diversity work, my colleagues and I, we use that acronym K to point to some of the tools that we can use to connect with other people. So C stands for curiosity, being curious about others. Tell me more. And in fact, we juxtapose tell me more against what someone says are the 3 worst words in the English language. I know that. Because immediately we tell ourselves we know that about others, we close ourselves off to learning anything about them that could be helpful in our interactions with them. More importantly, that could be helpful in us being helpful to them. So C is for curiosity. A is for awareness of my own biases and my own triggers and my own thoughts, but also awareness of how that impacts other people. R is then, with that awareness stemming out of that curiosity, how do I reframe what I've internalized? How do I change the lens? How do I take off these glasses that I've been using, these spectacles, and put on a fresh pair so that I can do different, so that I can do better, do what I know is better than what I've been doing all along? And then E is one that I really very feel strongly about. E is for empathy. You've mentioned empathy already earlier in the program. And empathy and curiosity alone, in my view, are enough to take us far in this journey as humans.
Absolutely. We're going to get back to that shortly.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
This is Sue Jackson, and I'm back with S'bo Vilakazi on the Finding Human program. And are you back with me, S'bo?
I am.
Good. You know what you said. When I was thinking about that question that came through, how do you feel? I must admit, I am hopeful. I really am. And when I was at this assembly yesterday, certainly it was at a Jewish day school. But what I saw when the headmistress did a short video of kindness, and then I heard the children responding to what it was, and she said, the kindness, and she went through everybody that it extends to, the people who maintain our school, the people who help us keep the school grounds tidy, and our teachers. I was very impressed. And that when I heard the children talking about different values that they were putting their hands up for, I thought, you know what, it is a challenge to change. But then when I heard Tori and Daniel and what their hopes are for next year and how they want to be the change that they want to see, as Gandhi said, be the change you want to see. And I actually do have hope. I really do. And I think it comes from, that word courage, which comes from the word heart. We all have to have heart to move forward in our lives and not just see the frustration of what we're all feeling. And as you say, the trauma of the pandemic has left everybody in some way scarred. Right.
It has. And congratulations to Tori and Daniel, by the way. I wish them all the best as
Now, I also wanted to know, if we've got time, about your Grow Well Child, because you partnered up with others we might have to have another program on that, but I love the fact that you've now got garden and vegetable packs that you're handing out. Just tell me a bit about that.
Yes, that came out of a program that Tiger Brands, which I learned is the continent's biggest food maker, manufacturer of food products. teamed up with the Mandela Children's Fund to launch a program called Isondlo, which means feeding in isiZulu. And how this came about is a high rate of...
You're freezing a bit. S'bo, you're frozen again.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson, and I'm being told to wrap up. S'bo Vilakazi was my visitor today, my guest, and unfortunately we had very bad connection between us, not between us actually, but between our gadgets.
Yeah.
It was so nice having you with me, S'bo. We will definitely have to do this again. I'll speak to you after this program. I am being told to wrap up, but we've lost quite a bit of time when we've frozen. We're going to actually be ending with a song which is called Be the Light, and it's by Rhett somebody other, and it says, in a time full of war, be peace. In a time full of doubt, just believe. Yeah, there ain't that much difference between you and me. In a time full of war, be peace. In a world full of hate, be a light. When you do somebody wrong, make it right. Don't hide in the dark. You were born to shine. In a world full of hate, be a light. S'bo, may you continue to shine your light to so many people, to everyone that you interact with. And thank you so much for being on my program. Thank you, Craig.